much. Can I welcome everyone to this meeting of Thetford Town Council's Planning Committee and invite you all to move to the first item, which is declarations of any disclosable pecuniary interest. Is there anyone who has anything to declare, please?
No, thank you.
Thank you for that. I'll take that. You've spoken for everyone, so thanks very much indeed. So on to 494. Do we have any apologies, please, Mark?
I have an
apology. Or Chris, I'm not sure who does it.
I have an apology from Jane James.
Thank you very much.
And also from Jen Hollis.
Thank you.
Are there any other apologies, please, from councillors who are aware? Although, of course, our fellow councillors should send it to the appropriate officer. No. Right, on to 495, which is the minutes. So can we confirm the minutes of the committee meeting held on the 13th of October, and which have already been received by full council? And are you happy with those minutes, colleagues? I'm not going to go through them because full council's seen them and you may well have been there. But your last chance.
I just have a bit of an issue, I'm afraid, Chair, in the sense that I cannot get at the moment the presentation pack on my visuals. Chris, have you got that presentation pack available to share? And if so, you want to do it? If not, I'll have to just go out and come in again quickly, I think. Brilliant.
It's not the right one. No, I'm sorry, it's not the right one. Sorry about that.
Well, I preference the one I've just sent you, but it doesn't matter. I mean, any of them will do if needs be.
There you go. Can you see it now, folks?
Yeah, that's
right,
great.
Chris.
Okay, I'm just
You're on, Chris. That's great. Thank you very much. Okay.
So I'll go over. Would you like to look at the minutes?
We'll just take a fleeting look at the minutes, please, Chris. Which you're on the first page now. And indeed, at least the second screen page is on going through now. Colleagues, if you're able to see this, anything that you're still unhappy about? Okay, we're approaching the final hurdle, which is community engagement. Okay, I'm going to take that as a signal, colleagues, unless you make a last-minute comment to me that you're happy with the planning, with the minutes of planning of last month. And that being the case, we will proceed to item 496, which I'm hoping Mark Webster, our officer, can now access on his screen. We've got Chris doing it, so that looks as if it should be okay.
Yeah, super. So, yeah, this item is basically to note only. This is one that's already been waved through under permitted development. So you can see at the top of your screens there the location of the site. Excuse me. At the bottom of your screen, you can see what it is that's actually been sort of waved through, as I said, as allowed, as not needing planning permission. That's a small single-story extension. Yeah, if we could go on to the next slide, Chris. You can just see the floor plans there. So, as I say, that's not one that the you're requested to make any comments on. That's purely for information. So, should we go on to 1177?
Yes, please.
Okay, if I could have the next page up, Chris.
Sorry. Yeah.
That's all right. That's fine. So, if we have a look at that picture, you can see there. This is on the Burrell Way industrial area, and the yellow arrow, which hopefully you can see, points towards the proposed racking, which is for external storage. So this is basically alteration of a condition that was originally proposed on the site, and again you can see the street view of it there. You'll note that there is car parking that's in that area at the moment, but they say they've got plenty of car parking around the back of the building. There seems to be a big open space there as well. So they propose to use this for external storage of the insulating materials that they're dealing with there. It would be 5 meters tall, so it is quite a tall set of racking, but they do point to the fact that a number of other sites on this industrial estate do have external storage allowed, and as I said, they're basically asking for the change from their original planning permission condition so that they can have external storage on racks in that area.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments from members of the planning committee, please?
Yes, please, Chairman, it's Terry.
Terry, would you like to speak?
Yeah, just to say, I looked into this one because it's my ward. It's ugly, but it's an industrial estate, so therefore it looks perfectly fine to me.
Thank you for your detailed research, councillor.
All right.
I wish it was all as easy as that one. Are there any further comments, please? You've heard from the ward councillor's expertise. Any more, please? Can I take it from that quick moment of silence that everybody is happy to support this proposal?
Dave Hutchinson's typing something on the chat. Agree to ugliness. Right. Okay. Do you agree to support it nevertheless? I think we ought to ask.
Did we get the message on the chat?
Yeah, Chris Harvey, agree.
Okay.
I'm not sure whether he's agreeing to its lack of beauty or its or the need for it, but
I'm not one to judge beauty, am I?
I'm going to take it, colleagues, that you agree with this
typing.
proposal. Is anyone wishing to oppose this proposal?
Stuart Wright, happy to support.
Thank you. Okay. I think those who've spoken are certainly in favour, and we've had at least 3. Happy to add to that to give it a majority. So if you'd like to go on to the next one, please, Mark.
Yep. So now, this paragraph under 0037. If you can make head and tail of it, then you are more knowledgeable and experienced on such matters than I am. I'm going to refer to sort of what I sent you basically in an email since then. So basically what is happening, that the developer is asking that the section 106 obligations, which they originally required for this site, this is the Sue site, or part of the Sue site north of Thetford, they are required to provide things like schools and open spaces. So what they are asking for is that obligation should not be potentially legally enforceable against the social housing provider, i.e. the landlord of future occupants who takes on the houses. So for any reason it can't be enforced against the developer, they want the social housing provider not to be liable for it. Now that is the one point on this that the Breckland housing officer has rejected. They don't feel that is legally appropriate. However, Breckland Housing don't object to the other 2 things that they wished to have changed, which is that the social housing provider should have the option, if they wish to do so in the future, to allow right to buy for their tenants. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they will do that, but that option is potentially there, and Breckland Housing Officer has said they don't object to that. And also the terms, and again, this is a sort of a legal administrative matter really, the terms relating to the shared ownership homes, i.e. those ones where it's sort of part bought by the occupier and part rented, those terms should be updated because at the moment it's felt that they're not acceptable to mortgage lenders as the situation is now. So in 9 years things have changed, and they basically want people to be able to get mortgages, which they wouldn't under the current conditions. So as I said, Breckland's planning officer is now seeking legal advice on whether they can actually reject this application. whether they have legal grounds to do so, basically, on the grounds that obviously the developer might then choose to appeal, or they might resubmit the application if they find that if they can show that they are basically unable to get a social housing provider, if the current conditions, or the potential liability for providing all those schools, open space, etc., might end up landing on them. So that is the situation as it currently is, and as best I understand it. So, as I said, it is really over to you to have a look at that and think about that, I suppose, now. But that's how the situation is with Breckland as it stands.
Thank you very much, Mark. Can I suggest that we take those one by one? The first one was the question of the Section 106 issue, or that's the first one I've got anyway. Are you happy or not with the idea that in the event that the developer is unable to go ahead or the business gives up in some way, that no one else would be responsible for Section 106? I mean, I can only read that, I may be wrong, that therefore there would be a question of whether Section 106 money would go ahead at all. And you'll note that the Breckland officer has said this is not a good thing. Any comments on that one, please?
I've got hands up from Brenda Canham and then Stuart Wright.
Brenda first, please.
Yeah, this takes a little bit of understanding because
Well done.
I don't know who owns the land. You know, if a developer owns the land and is allowing a housing association to build property on it, surely it shouldn't fall to a housing association to have to provide schools. I mean, a housing association is what it is. It's a housing association. They don't supply schools and everything else, do they? So it's a bit hard to actually answer this question, because who is the developer? Or as a housing association gone in as a developer?
I don't know whether Mark can answer that. It's a question of...
I'm not sure I'm not sure I can say for definite. My understanding is that this is the developer asking for, because at some point they wish to hand these properties over to sell them to a housing association, and they are therefore then asking that housing association shouldn't, under any circumstances, end up with the bill for paying for all the Section 106 infrastructure. That's really, I think, the limit of my knowledge, and this obviously is a kind of quite technical legal matter, so I'm afraid I can't really say much more than that.
Well, shall we take Stuart's comment first and then proceed as best we can? Stuart, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think Mark's probably nailed it on the head. It is a legal matter. I think just looking at it in simplicity, you could see the developer handing it over to a housing association and them not delivering on Section 106 and us not getting all the amenities that were promised at the start. So I can see why Breckland are reluctant to release them from this. I think we just need to make the point that we would hope that any decision would make the developer responsible for the Section 106 projects that were promised before any transfer happens.
That would be a good phrase to cover it. If you put that last phrase in, that could be helpful, because it'll prevent the developer selling the land and then in some way avoiding the Section 106 commitments, perhaps by folding a particular company, for example, which might be a possibility. It just gives us a little more security in Thetford to make sure that we get what we've been promised. So,
from Terry Jeremy.
Yeah, thank you. Terry, would you like to comment, please?
Yeah, the main thing I was going to say is the comments from Breckland have come from the housing enabler, or sort of housing officer from the council, whose role is to support affordable housing and community benefit, if you like. And that's really what their role is. So if they're objecting to this, I think we should be saying that we support their objection. Their sole role is to get additional benefits for the community, and that would be something that we would want to support. So I think our response should be along the lines of we support the objections of the housing officer.
How do you feel, Terry, about the concern that's been expressed that we might be putting at risk getting the Section 106 money?
It's difficult for us to say, isn't it? Because there are so many complex issues. I'm not a lawyer, but ultimately our aim would be to get the maximum community benefit from the development, bearing in mind that we had concerns when permission was granted that those community benefits were not as strong as we would have liked. And you know, we wouldn't want to see any further watering down of those restrictions. So I don't know all the ins and outs, but what I sense is if the housing officer's objecting to it, then we should be supporting them with their objection.
Thank you. Are there any other comments, please? I'm in some difficulty here, colleagues, because I think I understand it as little as the least of you, and I'm just concerned that we really, of course, as Terry has pointed out, we want that. We do want to support the housing association and the affordable housing, but we also want to make sure that we are not putting at risk and not jeopardising the Section 106 money, which we have seen in the past developers sometimes don't provide immediately. I wonder whether Stuart's comment would perhaps cover that to a degree. That is to say that we would be asking for the Section 106 money to be provided before the developers sold the houses to the housing association. Is that a way around it? Maybe that's the best we can do. Whether it's a way around it because we're not legal eagles ourselves, at least it gives some protection to getting the best of both of these requirements. I'm trying to provoke you really, or to get you to say, yes, we accept what Stuart said. Can I ask whether there's any objection to the last comment I made, which was echoing what Stuart had previously said?
Mr. Chairman, it's Mrs. Cannon. I agree with Terry and what Stuart has said.
Yep.
Whether we could work something out that explains both. So we're not saying that we want the owners to go on to a housing association. It's the developer that's got to do this. So perhaps we could put the two together somehow.
Well, I think that's what Stuart tried to do, isn't it? He tried to say, I think he did say that the housing association wouldn't be involved until such time as the developer had done the necessary. So we're putting the onus back on the developer rather than asking the housing association to hold the responsibility. That would be our target. They are the proper people who ought to be paying the Section 106 money. They're the people who agreed to it in the first place, not a housing association. They're the ones who stand to profit from the development, not a housing association. It's right and proper that they should be the ones who make the contribution, which is a legal requirement. I wonder whether, Mark, you're happy that what Stuart said appears to get the best of both. It avoids putting the onus on the housing association, but it maximises the attempt to put the onus on the developer.
Right.
I've got Dave Hodgkinson agree with Stuart and Terry. I've got Chris Harvey. I agree with Terry. Must support having officer objection. So are you looking for something like we support the housing officer's objection to the removal of this condition and would expect the Section 106 obligations to be fulfilled before any transfer of ownership?
Well, that would suit me personally. Thank you for that. Are there any colleagues who don't feel that's covered it yet?
Yeah, I think that sounds very good.
Good. Thank you, Terry. Brenda,
Right, with that.
Stuart's presumably happy. Brenda, are you happy with that?
Yep, well done.
Yeah.
Well done, Mark. I think that's something that we can all sign up to. So thank you very much indeed for that. Those of you who thought this was going to be a short meeting, of course, all these extraordinary last-minute events mean that you need another coffee, probably. We're going to carry on without a break, so it's up to you. So move on to the next item, please, Mark.
So this is another for information only. You're not being asked for your comments at this time, but basically this is a proposal to replace the windows and doors on the house shown. Can we move that? Thanks, Chris. Yeah, here with UV PVC of the same type. So we're looking basically on the sort of on Magdalen Street, on the near to Milford Common, that sort of area, but on Magdalen Street here, and it's basically apparently some of the neighbours have done the same already. But yeah, as I said, so this is Breckland making a decision on whether planning permission is actually required. So this is purely for information, no comment required at this stage. Are we okay to move on to the next
In that
one?
case, we're happy to move on, please. Mark, yes.
Yep. So 1223. Yeah, we can shift up to the next page. Chris, thanks. So this is one for the building of two houses on the corner here. You're looking at basically, so originally this was granted permission for two flats, and this was later changed to two houses on the same footprint. So that has already been agreed that the two dwellings can go in there. And you can see the top right of your picture there. There are the two houses on this corner plot with the 3 parking spaces there. Yeah, can we go on to the next page? Actually, basically, so we're looking at that plot from the side there. And basically, as I said, the permission already exists, so you're really only being asked to comment on the detail of this. Basically, that the design of the houses, the materials that are used are to be the same roof and brick materials as the neighbouring house, which is the one you can see behind the garage there. The garage, interestingly enough, doesn't seem to be mentioned. I don't know if anybody knows the area or has seen it more recently than me. I'm afraid I can't remember whether that garage is still there. It's not mentioned on this application, so I assume it may have been already removed when this goes back to 2007, the granting of planning permission, and works were apparently started in 2010. Which including the foundation, but sort of it looks like nothing further has happened since then. So local ward councillors may well have more sort of detail on that, on what the state of the plot is at the moment. But the housing you can see there is basically just sort of filling in the detail on an existing granted planning application.
Thank you very much for that. I think it's astonishing that a planning application could have been granted those years ago and still maintains its current value. However, whether Chris and Terry would like to go first, if either of you have a comment on this, please, being the ward councillors.
Do you want to go first, Chris?
Yes, please.
Yes, please, Chris.
Morning, Terry. Who's going first?
Chris, we're not hearing you.
You must be. I'm unmuted. Can you hear me now?
We're here now.
Okay. I must admit, I hadn't seen this until late this afternoon, so I've not been up to look at this plot. I really don't know a great deal about this, so I'm hoping to go and have a look tomorrow for more information. I'm really sorry to be. That's the first I've ever heard of it. Sorry.
Well, it's not surprising.
This is a very last minute one.
It's both. It's last minute, and it's before your time as a council. It's so long ago that the planning permission was given. Terry, did you want to comment, please?
Yeah. Well, I'll say what I want to say, which is I've been around long enough that I can remember it first time around, and I think the town council objected at the time because they regarded it as overdevelopment. That was certainly one of the points that I made. I remember when the plot was sold, but based on what Mark's just said, I don't think we can object to the principle of it because that sort of horse is bolted. So I don't like it, but as to commenting on the design and the layout and stuff, I don't really have any observations, but I can see there's free car parking spaces on the proposal, which is good because there is a distinct lack of parking in that area. If I was being picky, I'd say ideally 4 would be good, but there's no way you can fit 4 there. But they're essentially cramming in 2 properties to the garden of the house on the end, and the 2 houses that are going in, the garden is going to be tiny. So I still feel it's overdevelopment, but probably we don't have a lot to say about that or can't make any influence on that. So.
Right, thank you. are there other councillors who'd like to comment, please? The ward councillors have had their word.
Stuart Wright, hands up.
Yes, please, Stuart. Stuart, you're muted.
A lot of people like me muted, Mike. I do remember when it came up, and Terry's right. I think we did object on the grounds of overdevelopment. Like you said, you can't. I think it might be worth commenting that we, think it still is overdevelopment, but there's not a lot else you can do as long as the materials are in keeping with the other buildings there. And as Terry said, parking is probably not adequate if you've got two properties there. Undoubtedly, there'll be more than one vehicle per place. But I don't, Mark, is this just a variation on the existing, or is it a new planning application that we are thinking?
It's not a variation. It is a new application, but I think as Terry pointed out, the precedent has been set. I don't think you can really sort of object to the principle of two houses, or you can, but I don't think that would carry any sort of weight at this stage. So it is a new application. They have tried to keep it alive over the years, but because nothing has happened on it, as far as we can tell, since 2010, I think they're having to resubmit a full application. Yeah, as I said, I think the question is whether it is the sort of the design rather than the sort of full concept of it. If
we objected first time round, we can object this time round.
Well, naturally, that is the committee's right, of course. But
what we look as if we're coming to, ladies and gentlemen, is to make a kind of last stand on the general principle while we're agreeing with the new detail, the change, for example, from two semi-detached dwellings. There's no problem with that. That we've expressed. I think as a matter of principle we should object. We have once or twice done that before in areas where we felt that the Breckland Council had not taken local considerations into care enough. It probably will lead to nothing, but it at least makes it clear to the community, some of whom may of course be listening this evening, that we do care about overdevelopment and that we are trying to support what I think it's fair to say residents in the area would probably feel. So can I suggest that we do say that we see no reason to change our previous objection, and that however, that we are happy with the plans to provide two houses rather than two flats. How would that sound?
Yeah, I just can confirm that it is an amended design to an extant permission. That's the phraseology. Hands up from Dave Hodgkinson.
Dave, your chance, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a small observation. I agree overdevelopment, and there were comments about the parking. But what I wanted to say about the parking was that it looks to me from the plans that the existing house has no parking provision, because it used to have the garage at the side. And so it looks to me that house doesn't have any parking. And I think the moving from 2 apartments to 2 buildings probably makes the desirability of having more parking available, because there's likely to be more people, I think, if you've got larger buildings. But I'm only sort of guessing, because I haven't I've seen the plans for the previous ones, because it might have been a 2-storey apartment rather than 2 houses.
That sounds very useful. We're offering 3 parking spaces for 3 dwellings,
yeah,
which is not excessive.
No. Okay. Thank you.
For that, perhaps we could add a comment about that, Mark, to express some concern about the fact that there's only an average of 1 parking place per dwelling. Again, I invite you, colleagues, any other member wishing to comment on this item.
Stuart Wright, agree with Dave.
I put my hand up, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry, I'm not able to see hands, unfortunately, but I hear you now. Would you like to speak, please?
Well, yeah, I just think that when we start squeezing properties in, whether they're flats or whatever, we don't give these people no garden space. You know, we've just been through a year where the only time that you can go outside, really, for some people, is in the garden. But we're not giving them these spaces. I agree with Terry. We're squeezing these properties in. It's just not right. You know, what we've got to live in boxes for the rest of our lives.
It is a major issue, isn't it, when there are children in the household, as to whether they have got a safe play space. We're not living in the times when children play on the road as they did 60 years ago. We've long passed that. So I think that's a fair point. I think it's a very useful point. In fact, the existing property would appear from the plan to have a very, very small garden area altogether. Is it possible to add something in, Mark, there to reflect that comment that we're concerned about the lack of amenity space or lack of garden space or lack of play space if there be children?
Yeah, so you could say something about, so no reason to change a previous objection to this development on the grounds of overdevelopment, a lack of parking spaces for the 3 properties involved, and a lack of garden amenity for the householders. Something like that.
Perhaps it's lack of sufficient parking places, is it? We have got 3.
Yeah, sufficient for the 2 new and 1 existing houses.
That's right. You can stress that. That's a nice way of stressing it. There are 3 properties involved. Okay. I'm just, again, as I tend to, just pausing a moment before we go on, but I'm hoping that colleagues are happy with the way we're dealing with that. And we would then be able to move, Mark, when you finish copying up the last one, to the next one, please.
Okay, so yeah, thanks, Chris. So we're looking at 1230 and 1231. It's got 2 because it's a listed building. 30 Bridge Street. If you have a look on the top right of your screen at the moment, you can actually see where the property and its car parking. And if you note, it says there access to parking from Bury Road. That actually comes out on the sort of Bury Road, sort of almost opposite the sort of Breckland car park, which is itself in front of the Hungry Horse pub there. So it does use an existing access point, but it is very close to that traffic light junction, Bury Road, Brandon Road, and so forth. As for the building itself, there's a very small amount of changes. So if we can just hold back for a second, Chris. So those 2 plans there show the existing layout. If you have a look on the left there, outside there is a sort of small shrubbery area. This is at the top of your picture there is actually the back of the building there. Basically at the moment it's all offices apart from the little sticky out bit on the ground floor, at the top of the ground floor. Apologies for the use of technical terms there. There's a utility room, and that in the proposed development becomes a disabled access toilet. So yeah, if we could go on to the next one now. Thanks very much. So basically, again, if you have a look at your sort of top left there, where there was the shrubbery, they're going to plan to concrete that over to make a slightly larger, but still actually really quite limited play area. So this, the intention is to use this building, which was offices, as a school, and it'd be a school for excluded pupils. Looking for up to 39 pupils. They have a staff of 7 full-time and 4 part-time members of staff. So that would then basically means all the offices become classrooms. The one on the left there, classroom, you can see it includes some cookers for home ec or food tech, depending on your generation, I suppose. And that comes with a small domestic size extractor duct, which would be on the outside of the building. That's probably the only sign that would be visible from the outside, apart from the green fencing, which you can see just at the top of your screens there, which is to sort of make sure nobody gets out from that, as I said, that small play area outside the building. So, as I said, apart from the change of a utility room to a accessible toilet, which you can see again on that sort of sticky out bit on the top, everything else is pretty much the same, as I said, but just with offices becoming classrooms, and as I said, the sort of yard outside with the shrubbery becoming that small play area.
Mark,
Right.
can you explain roughly where this is? Because I'm
Oh
lost.
yeah, sorry. So can we just go back up, to, Chris, to where the map was on
Yeah,
there?
I'm
So
I'm
that,
lost.
yeah.
I'm lost
So
in
this
Bridge
was,
Street.
you may know this as I think it's called Knights Low solicitors. So we're looking at number
Right,
30 Bridge Street. So you can't see where my cursor is, of course, but if you from 30 Bridge Street, which is the one sort of with the car park behind it, you've got about 4 buildings before you're sort of approaching the river. It's basically
That's all right.
quite
I know.
close there.
It's all right, Mark. Not it's next to the limes. Yeah, I've got it now.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it was changed into
Yeah.
loads of offices. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, thank you, Mark, for that. So, colleagues, what do you feel about the location of a school for 39 children? What do you feel about the play area? What do you feel about the car park exit, which may in fact not be a new one, so that may be acceptable, or and possible highways will have a different view. They may decide it was never a good thing, and this is their chance to comment. Comments from colleagues about the proposed school on Bridge Street, please. And I'm not seeing hands, so I've got to rely on somebody else to tell me who wants to speak.
Yeah, if I ask people, I am watching the chat, so if people want to put an HU in the chat, I can see that. Hands up, I don't always get to see, but I think Stuart Wright has got his up now.
Stuart, would you like to start us off, please? Stuart, you're muted.
Sorry again. Yeah, there's an existing entrance there used for offices, both for the limes and for this building. So it is in use. What we'll have is probably a concentration of vehicle movements as people drop off the pupils at school time. However, because there's not that many alterations, I'm quite happy to support, subject to the highways not having any objections.
Thank you. Any more, please?
Could I ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
You can indeed, Brenda.
Where that's situated, isn't the car parking round the back? I know the limes. There's quite a long pathway. You enter it from the Berry Road.
That's it.
The car park is on Berry Road, and it's sort of, as I said, almost opposite the entrance to the Breckland car park on the other side. So it's between the lights and where the road turns, sort of, well, between the traffic lights and the entrance to Bridge Street, and that then sort of feeds behind the buildings along Bridge Street into the car park, which is at the back of the number 30 there. So they've got half a dozen car parking spaces. They want to put in 5 bike spaces there as well. Basically, that would be staff car parking. The pupils, 95% of them arrive by taxi.
So the only problems that we would have then is the dropping off. But I mean, at that time of day, they're dropping off at the grammar school anyway, aren't they? So most of them pull in around the cinema, drop them off and go off again. I don't see a problem with it. I think it's an ideal place for a school, because the offices are sort of like going out the window now. Everyone's working from home. So
I've got support from Dave Hodgkinson as well.
Dave, please.
So just a comment support, yeah.
Oh, comment support. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Are there any other comments, please? Can I, if you may be wanting time to think about it, I know we've got one or two supporters. Can I express some concern about this, please? I think that in the first place, I'm not sure that 37 taxis or a maximum of 37 taxis is a small number. I think that's quite a big addition to the traffic on what is, after all, a one-way street and which runs through another school. So there is a concern about that, I would feel. I think we have to consider also the children who are going to use the building. The age range is very significant. And I would be very, very concerned about, I mean, you know my trade, I was a head teacher for the second half of my working life. I'd be very concerned about the lack of open space play area for these children. You must expect of anyone below the age of, shall I say, 19, to be energetic. So they are spending, let's say, 2 hours in classrooms, and then they need a break time to let off steam, and the same at lunchtime. And it seems to me that the total amount of space available for their play is likely to prove inadequate. You've got a wide age range, so that the children are going to be mixing 6-year-olds perhaps with 16-year-olds. I don't think that goes well together. If 15 and 16-year-old lads want to play football, that's a danger to others. It would probably not be allowed. It means that they have a limited way of expressing their enthusiasm and their energy in the break time and lunchtime breaks. The alternative, presumably, would be to let the children onto Bridge Street at lunchtime, which would be good from the point of view of the children. You'd have to ask whether the public would feel the same. So I think there's a real concern about the amount of space in which children can relax. And I stress to you as strongly as I can, people of that age group do need to get away from cramped classrooms and cramped environments. We used to run at Rosemary Musket a national chess tournament. We had 100 kids come in from other parts of the country in that sort of same age range. They would sit for an hour at a chessboard, and they would need to get out and tear around for 20 minutes or half an hour to get rid of the energy that had been pent up at that time. So I can't really express too strongly my concern that the children do need to have sufficient relaxing playing area, and playing does not mean something virtually standstill. It means running around. For many young people, it just means running around. So please be sure that you're happy with that arrangement in particular. What are the children going to do to relax? That would be my big concern about this.
I do have a relevant comment from Stuart Wright on that. Athena have applied to Staniforth to use the King's House multi-use games area for recreation.
Yep, thank you very much for that. Is that what's suggested? This is not necessarily what's suggested here. It would mean the children moving down the street, wouldn't it? Yeah, they would have to be supervised by the staff who want to have their lunch break at the same time. It's a tricky one, the supervision of children at free time, because the staff want their relaxing as well. It would be a concern for me, even though if there were a site available some distance away.
Yeah, Chris Harvey, so they would have to cross roads, not ideal.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Stuart, for your comments. Are there any further comments, please?
I've got Dave Hodgkinson and Chris Harvey, I think, both typing at the moment. Dave, I'm tempted to say you could just say your comment. But,
well, it's not me. I think it was Chris and Stuart.
Oh, right, okay.
I didn't have anything to say.
That's strange, yeah. Okay, Stuart Wright, I think these pupils will require supervision at all times, which is it is a school for excluded pupils, so I'm sure that is true.
Yeah.
Nothing further on the chat at the moment, yeah.
Okay, can I just fill in a moment further? I think the nature of the children is something that we would want to bear in mind. The children are children who have been at other schools and around the county, and who have, for whatever reason, been deemed by their school someone who they're not able to educate It's usually for behavioural reasons, not always. There can be other issues such as mental illness, but the commonest is by far is that the children have exhibited behaviour which the school staff have not felt able to deal with effectively, and the normal procedure is to place them in a school which has a better staff pupil ratio, which is what's happening here. To be fair, that's absolutely right. We have what was it, approximately 9 staff for 39 children. That's a very good number. So there's a concern both ways on that. They are providing a staff, incidentally, which of course is something which is subject to change once the planning permission's been given. It's not possible for us, once the planning permission has been given, to regulate either the numbers of children or the numbers of staff. So you perhaps might want to bear that in mind. It's a difficult situation. We need these children to be given another chance at education and to be given more specialist help from a larger number of staff, and that's great. They deserve that. These are children who may have had family difficulties or may have had emotional difficulties or physical difficulties, and they need to have an opportunity to gather an education and to make useful and decent and enjoyable lives for themselves. Take all that, absolutely. The concern, I think, is whether the site is right and whether the space is big enough for the children to energize or de-energize themselves so they can concentrate on the next sitting down period. Kind of not seeing any, that's the end. I think I've said enough on that score. You either believe me or or you think it's a good site.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask you a question?
Sorry, Brad. Can I
just ask you a question? Surely, if that's going to be a place of education, Ofsted or somebody would go in there and say that building's suitable or not suitable. I mean, you can't just open a school and say it's suitable because you can't do it to nurseries. So, surely, if somebody's been in there to look at it already.
I think the problem is that they would say that after the school had already opened, not before. The people who are organising this school are a professional group of people who have looked into the possibility, I have no doubt, of using this site. It's a superb site from their point of view because so little needs to be done to it. There's no expenses required to speak of to get the place up and running, which is quite unusual for a school. When you think of the cost of Thetford Academy, a somewhat larger school, I know, but they spent 18 million on that. This one, what is it, 18,000? It's absolutely no comparison whatever. So ideal from their point of view. But I think you'll find that Ofsted would not be involved until they came to assess the school after it had opened. At that point, you could argue, if it's wrong, that the situation's been overlooked and what been damaged been done. And what would happen then, I think, is that the Ofsted would be saying you need more play space, and they would end up doing precisely what Stuart described. And therefore, if I think what Stuart described was you feel is appropriate or sufficient, then I think you probably need to support this proposal, because that is actually how it'll end up. It will end up with finding more space for play areas, for relaxation at lunchtime in particular, which could be as long as an hour, in which to let off steam. And are you happy with the way that will fall out? It will fall out with an extra space being provided somewhere else, I'm almost certain. I know I'm guessing, I appreciate I'm guessing, but I do have a great concern about the need for children to have a relaxing space. We had 16 acres at Rotary Musker, and there was originally only 500 children, so they should have 1.6, 1.5, 1.4 acres pro rata, although the age range is very wide, which complicates matters. You really don't want 6-year-olds playing with 15-year-olds. So have they got 1.6 acres for playing? I would question that.
No, nothing like that. No, it is quite a small area, definitely. Can we sort of move towards a sort of a decision on sort of planning grounds, or sort of a statement that you'd like to make?
I think in the end, colleagues, I'm going to ask you just to make a simple statement as to whether you support or oppose. I mean, I've ranted on enough. Would you like to perhaps you just, I don't know whether Mark or Chris Crimmen can see hands that are raised, in which case I can simply say to you, if you wish to be a supporter of this planning application, will you raise a hand now?
Okay, I can't see all the hands, to be honest, but if you put it in the chat, folks, I can see it. So Terry Jeremy support, Stuart White support.
I
and,
support
Dave
Brenda
Washington
Cameron.
support.
Yep.
Brenda Cowan support.
Okay.
That's a simple support then. Any other, you wish to make any comment, or just simply support it?
Right, we have a majority in favour of supporting. Does anyone wish that we add any comments to that?
I mean, you could say something like subject to sufficient provision of. Well, I'm not even sure you can say that on playing grounds actually, but subject to facilities being available for outdoor recreation, being found for outdoor recreation. On those grounds, if you wish to do so, or it can be a simple support.
I think
Mr. Chairman, we have got a problem because we're saying outside recreation. Well, you know, like in the winter, the schools stay in. What would they?
No, they don't, Brenda.
What room have they got? Because we used to have pools, or you might go into the library. They won't. Have they got enough facilities where they can go and say, right, it's a relaxation room, or are they stuck in that same room? Because you're not going to drag them all the way up to Stanleyforth Garden or down by the river if it's pouring down the rain, are you? I'm coming from your point of view.
Yep.
So I don't know whether you say play facilities or recreation, rest time.
Yep.
You could have a simple support and say something like we would hope to see sufficient provision for outdoor recreation provided, or something like that. Right, so it's not a condition. You don't want to put a condition on it, but you would express a wish for that to be made available.
I think that's something for those who supported the proposal to say. I don't know whether those who supported, there was a majority who supported.
Hands up, Dave Hutchinson.
Would you happy to add that? And Dave?
Yeah, I'm happy to add the comment that Mark's just made about our concerns about outdoor space support, but concern that there is not sufficient or may not be sufficient outdoor space for recreation, something like that.
Stuart Wright, happy to add that.
Is anyone unhappy with that addition, please? I'm trying to. We have spent a good time on it. Is anyone unhappy to add Dave's suggestion? No, we aren't. We are happy to add Dave's suggestion, therefore. So thank you, Mark, for wording it, and for Dave for the little bit of caution. A note of caution is expressed. Okay, well, we're happy to move on to the next item, because this is one that I think we can take great pleasure in. And this is item 49920. Mark, back to you, please.
Yeah, so we've received a letter from Norfolk Highway saying that they are proposing to introduce speed limit reductions from 40 to 30 on all of the green roads mentioned there. I did have another look at Brandon Road on Street View today, and I think that is all 30 all the way there. So as far as I can tell, that is all of the 40s, I think, that are going down to 30 in this proposal. Yeah, I know members have been calling for this previous meetings, and yes, hand up from Terry Jeremy.
Can I just say, before we move on to comments from colleagues, that any roads which are not included, such as Berry Road, Euston Road, A1066, are roads which do not have housing on them. So this looks like a major development for Thetford. And if that's correct about Brandon Road, I was very ignorant. I couldn't remember whether there was a 40-mile bit on Brandon Road near to the A11, but Mark has checked that, and we think not. So are there any comments, please, other than euphoria and delight?
So hands up from Terry Jeremy.
Terry.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I did consider whether I needed to declare an interest in this one, because I am paying for half of the cost from my county councillor member highways budget, but I'm not personally benefiting. So I think I'm okay to comment, but obviously this is something that I've been pushing for. I was a bit like Mark, really shocked at how few roads there are that actually are still 40 miles an hour. But the London Road particularly has been a concern of mine for a long while. It's changed massively over the last few years, much more sort of retail along that road, lots more cars going to and from at all times of day, entrances and exits onto the London Road. So that alone for me is really important to get that down to a 30. The only observations which I had made direct to county, but the town council might want to consider, the community benefit from this comes from the communication and publicity around making it clear to everybody that the whole of Thetford now is a 30-mile-an-hour zone and please drive safely. So I think as part of the consultation, if we can really encourage Norfolk County Council to be mindful of that consultation and publicity, I think that's really important, because if we're simply changing the speed on a piece of paper, it's irrelevant. We want to get through to people, so the publicity is key. And then also the quick removal of the old signs. I would be keen for us not to have signs in the right locations, but not too many of them. It's an interesting balance. But I've been noting how many signs there are around Thetford at the moment, which are conflicting. So I think just sort of sympathetic signage in the right places is the best way to go. But in terms of whether it should be 40 or 30, I'm obviously sold on the idea that it should be 30, but just two minor observations from me.
Thank you very much indeed, and congratulations to you on your part in it. I think I would just add the point that it does seem to me that we are, with this proposal, we are encouraging people in Thetford to feel that if they make their voices heard, they will be listened to. And I think that in itself is a good thing for democracy, that there have been campaigns and there have been groups which have wanted to achieve this, and it looks as if Norfolk have listened, thanks perhaps to your effort and to those of others. Are there other comments, please, from colleagues?
Mr. Chairman, it's
Yep.
yeah, I'd just like to thank Stake, because I know they've been trying this for years, so they've been working hard on it as well.
Thank you very much indeed for that. I think you're right. Okay, so we are an enthusiastic supporter, Mark. We're delighted to hear this news, and I think we anything else is pretty superfluous, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not a sort of a reply on the website as it would be for a planning application. It's just a matter of me replying to the letter. Yep. So I can say that you yes, enthusiastically support this. Do you also want me to include Councillor Jeremy's comments about trying to make the most of the sort of publicity opportunity, and to sort of limit the number of signs so that it's effective but not superfluous?
I can't imagine Norfolk objecting to the idea of limiting the number of signs. They have cost money to put up, don't they?
Yeah, it does seem to be a general sort of trend.
Terry, Terry, if you feel that you've located superfluous ones, I know you will make your feelings known to county, and they'll hopefully either remove them or not replace them as they become necessary to be removed.
Hands up from Dave Hodgkinson.
Dave, please.
Just a quick note on signage. I did go on a training course about road rules. I won't say why, but you might be able to guess. And I think my understanding is that when you enter a 30 sign, there's no necessity for any repeater signs. It's only when you're going along a 40 limit. So we should only see the 30s as we enter into the town, and the de-restricted as we leave. And so there should be a lot of clutter should be removed from the roads, I think.
Yeah,
I agree with the comments, and I think it would be good to add something in about what Terry suggested about making the most of the publicity and selling this as a major road safety situation, or potentially once it gets passed.
Yep, that seems like good sense. I'm just inviting colleagues finally from any more comments on this win-win situation. Rather rare, we want to make the best of it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Anything further on the chat?
I think we can probably say that's the end of that item. Thanks everyone for your comments. Thanks everyone for your efforts over a long period of time to get to this point where we are now saying 30 is right for Thetford. And we've got Norfolk County Council support, which is great. Okay, next item, please, Mark.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much. If we can have the next slide along, Chris, if
Yeah, sorry,
you're still on the case.
Popped out of it. I don't know.
Oh.
Still in there. Let me just check it. Sorry.
I can see the cursor moving, so I think it is happening.
Yeah.
So
This
I
isn't
can,
right. Let me come out of it and do it again.
I
That's
think
it.
what we're hoping to get to is 500. So
it's
government-wide.
500. I mean, I can tell you now. Basically, this is an item again, not as such for further discussion. It's more again a note.
Mark, which is great.
But I can read out to you. Oh, you can now see it. But yeah,
Thanks,
yeah.
Chris.
Well, okay. Yeah. So just basically, again, to note, at the last meeting when this was discussed, the Thetford Town Council decided not to have a town council statement or policy on response to the government official response to the government's white paper on planning. Bretford District Council are making a comment as the council rather than as individuals, and there it is. And as I said, it is there to note. If anyone wants to see the full response, I'm not sure it's actually available on their website yet, but I have got that available if anybody wants it. But basically, that summary is as it is, and as I said, it's basically just to note that that has been adopted by Breckland as their official statement.
I think, colleagues, I would like to add to that a little bit of comment. I do feel that Breckland Council has done a good job here. It's difficult for any council which is of the same party as the national government to criticise the national government too strongly. I think it's a very carefully worded document, the full response this is, not the document you've got in front of you. But I think it nonetheless contains a good deal of good sense about the dangers of going to the proposal which the government has floated. I'm very hopeful that it will be supported by similar councils to Breckland up and down the land, particularly rural councils, where they realise that, like Breckland, they may have been pursuing a policy of supporting development in towns but not villages, to realise that what they're doing is opening a can of worms in many villages. So it'll be much easier to have development in villages not supported by the local community under the new proposals than under the current proposals, which are not unfair, I think, to both parties. So hopefully the government will listen to Breckland, and if they do, I think we'll have a complete rethink on the issue. And I'm going to suggest that, with your permission, colleagues, we leave that item now, but I'm happy to take any further comments if you'd like to make them, remembering that, of course, that's what they are. They're just comments. We're noting the response. Okay. So on to 501, items to be referred to the Greater Thetford Partnership. Colleagues, are there any items you'd like to see referred to the GTP? We've got 500 on the screen. There may not be a 501. Very much.
There's nothing more on this one.
Thank you very much, Chris. Any comments, please, on 501, which is items to be referred to the Greater Thetford Partnership? Are there any that you wish to, which we can ask Terry, I think, to convey? Should we wish to have any?
Mr. Chairman, may I say something?
Yes, Brenda, of course.
I think over the last few months we've given the GDP quite a lot of things that we want done, either individually or as a committee, like we've mentioned about dentists and other things. And I think we just need to give them time to get them done, because if we overload them, they're not going to do anything. So as long as they keep us updated on what's going on, I think that's the main thing.
That's a great comment. Thank you very much. That's very helpful. And I just wonder whether we should pause so that anyone who wishes to respond in terms of coming back on behalf of GTP to us. Is there any comment that needs to be made there about progress on previous items or indeed obstacles?
I'm happy to reply, Chairman, if you like.
I hoped you would, Terry.
I'm not the town council rep on the board, but I am a board member, so in that capacity I'm happy to respond.
Yeah.
The point I would make is Brenda's absolutely right. Hopefully you have all seen the regular updates from Jack Weaver. I've said this to him direct, so he won't be embarrassed, but he produces very good, I think it's monthly, maybe 6 weekly, written reports outlining who he's meeting and what they're discussing, which for me as a board member is really useful because I can see in real time that he's acting on the priorities of the board. And I can't remember off the top of my head precisely who he's met with lately, but it's about 6 or 7 different people that he's met and basically banged the drum for Thetford. And these are not necessarily just local organisations. These are sort of, East Anglia wide, the LEP and the Network Rail and people like that, and actually saying, what are you doing for Thetford? So from that point of view, I think it's really useful. So he relies on us to tell him what the issues are, Town Council, Breckland Council, and he's out there having a conversation. So I think I saw it was either Jane or Mark that circulated it to the town councillors. But when you see that, do read it because it's a very good report on a regular basis, and that should help keep town councillors informed what he's doing on our behalf. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And just before I let Stuart Wright come in, I'll just point out that you mentioned Jane and Mark. They are our town council representatives. Thanks for standing in for them. Stuart, you wanted to comment, please. Stuart, you're muted again.
Patrick.
I'll keep myself open. Yes, I think Terry's right in he's engaging with a lot of people. Terry, I'm sorry I missed the tail end of ALP the other day, but one of the things we were talking about was St Peter's and then getting the likes of the LEP involved for funding for both, not just St Peter's, but also the historic environment and White Hart Street and things like that. I don't know how far we've got in terms of the heritage appraisal. I know I did get an email from Paul Clausen saying the conservation area is back on the Breckland radar. But I'm just conscious if we're having the conversations with the LEP and if we are trying to get St Peter's up and running to get money from the LEP along the historic side and the heritage environment, that we maybe just need to keep reinforcing that point to Jack when he's having those conversations.
Thank you. I think we may have run out of comments on that topic.
Yep, nothing further on the chat, Chair.
Thanks very much indeed. Okay, so we're on to 502. The last one is 503, so nearly there. 502 is a committee officers update. So Mark, it's over to you.
Yeah, there is one. I don't know whether you've got this on your right at the end, Chris.
Yeah, there's nothing on the end.
No, you've probably got the earlier version. In which case, I'll just tell you again, a last-minute addition. I heard sort of this afternoon the Trim Trail application. Historic England have basically come back with a series of objections to the application for the Trim Trail as it currently stands in Castle Park. They say they require a heritage statement to describe the significance of the heritage assets, with a level of detail proportional to the asset's importance, which they have themselves said is very large, and through a consultation of relevant historic and environment record and use of appropriate expertise. So they require a heritage statement. They require details on the depth of foundations. Well, that's something we can get from the preferred contractor. I'm not sure what stage that's at the moment, whether we actually picked a definite company to do that, but perhaps colleagues may know. councillors may be aware of that one, but as I said, we can get those details. They also require us to set out the public benefit of proposed fitness equipment so that it can be weighed against the harm to the monument. So they're looking for evidence of, I suppose, need in terms of health inequalities, that sort of thing, and yeah, as I said, the sort of benefits of it requires some detail on the what benefits trim trails have. So yeah, basically the situation at the moment is that it's not going to get through planning unless we sort of provide those details. So we have sort of one potential option, which is that I basically reply to them with what they've said about how important the Castle Mound and its surroundings is, and any other information we can gather together ourselves. That I again perhaps do some research on health inequalities and the benefits of trim trails, and as I say, get the details of the actual foundations required, how deep that's got to go, etc., and resubmit. Or do we actually go and get consultants in, because it does refer to appropriate expertise. It may be that you are looking at, if you do wish to pursue this, having to spend money on consultants on sort of heritage and health. So as I said, that is the situation as it stands. And yeah, over to councillors for comments. I can see a hands up from Stuart Wright.
Just to come to you in a moment, Stuart. I'm in danger of losing the ability to speak. Over 4 pages of a letter, the first page of which clearly laid out the answer to their own first question. It is an extraordinary activity, but the fact is that if we decide we want to continue with the trim trail, then we're going to have to jump through their hoops, I fear. Mark has put forward very kindly a proposal. I'm bound to point out to all of you colleagues that you're well aware that we're losing a very senior officer of ROS very, very shortly. Thursday, in fact. We haven't got the person power that we did have in order to go to the length of this, so it's going to have to go on Mark's plate, and he will do it when he can if you ask him to do it. It is very disappointing, but that's the way it goes. Having had that very minor rant, I'm going to pass on to Stuart Wright, please.
Just to say before you do that, if we can, Chris, if you want to sort of lose that, if everyone's seen that, do you want to go stop sharing the screen now? Because we're actually seeing everything there, which is not relevant. So yes, I'll carry on.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think Jane did make a note. This is obviously going through ALP anyway, because it's their project and they will have to find the funding to do whatever they choose to do. But I just questioned, did we, when we put the Castle Park play equipment in, did we have need to do a heritage statement then, or did that predate the legislation that they're asking now? Because I think a lot of the information must have been put forward when we redone the Castle Park play equipment some time ago. So rather than reinvent the wheel, or if we can cobble something together along those lines, because I'm very conscious that consultants don't come cheap. And if we've got a lot of the information to hand, it may suffice, and it may be that we can have an off-the-record conversation with Historic England to say, well, we've got this, is this sufficient for us to do, rather than do it letter to letter. Let's get talking on that respect.
So can I just check, Stuart, are you referring to the equipment that's already there? Because again, we're looking at not the Viking boat that we're now going to have to put in, which again part of the same thing. So the previous
about 10 years ago, I think it was probably put in, and I can't remember. Susan Glossop was about the time, but what information there is. But I think there must be something kicking around in our archives in relation to our application, because I know English Heritage at the time were very mindful that the scheduled monument shouldn't have too deep things done on it, and the footprint shouldn't expand too much from the previous play equipment. So I'm sure we went through a lot of hoops to get the new play equipment that's there now. So if we can look at that, you might be able to just get enough for there and update it. The benefits, obviously, from the health side, I think we can all put those in, but it's getting that historic assessment done, which I think is going to cause you a problem. But I think have a look at that first.
Right. Okay, that's really useful to know. Thanks for the tip. Yeah, in terms of having a conversation with them, I'm going to have to be speaking to James Alborn from Historic England about the fencing for Castle Park as well, with regards to sort of archaeological monitoring of the digging of the fence holes for that. So, yeah, definitely, we do need to get him on site and just say, to find out what exactly we need. And I think you're right, a face-to-face conversation would be useful for that. So yeah, that would be really useful if we've got anything like that. And similarly, if any councillors have got information that would back up either that historic sort of, the importance, anything that would say with some provide some backing or some useful I'm not sure what the word I'm looking for here is, but something with some weight that will carry some weight on the historic importance of the monument and or health situation in Thetford, or has experience of other sort of putting in fitness equipment and can provide any evidence of how that's made a difference, then yes, that would be certainly extremely useful for me. I've got hands up from Brenda Canham and then Chris Harvey.
Can we take them in that order then, please, Brenda?
Yeah, thank you. I'm sure Rosa's got some of this information, Mark. Have you checked with her?
Well, I had a conversation with her, unfortunately, just before this email came in, and she was saying that she'd been trying to contact Historic England on numerous occasions and hadn't sort of been able to get a response on this, and that was why the planning application was put in as it was, i.e., without all of these bits of information that they say they require. So we may have some information on that, but it hasn't certainly been put in with the planning application.
Right. Obviously, we don't really want to pay consultants if we don't have to. And obviously, this has got to go back to ALP to make a decision. Yeah. But I think going forward, if you're having the man down, you can actually talk him through it at the same time, as long as you know what depth that play area is. Now, I'm sure Roger's got that because we've spoken about that quite a lot.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll definitely have to try and get that off her before she leaves.
Yeah.
Super.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just before Chris comes in, I just point out that if we can get this into our minutes so that they are seen by full council at the end of November, then ALP will be able to, and perhaps I'll make a point in that meeting of drawing the attention of all councillors to this issue so that ALP can take the issue up then, so that their side of it, which is obviously important, can be dealt with as well. And Chris Harvey, please.
Yeah, this might be slightly off key, but I mean, this is really disappointing. The trim trail is obviously going to be beneficial to the residents of Thetford. The steps up Castle Hill are far more, up the mound than the trim trail will be. That's going to be alongside the path by the road there. I just don't understand why they make this jump through hoops now. I'm just puzzled. But that might be because just a daft Norfolk boy. I don't know.
I think you're entirely right, but I think the claim would be that the whole site is likely to have archaeological remains beneath the surface, and it's interesting that, however, the Quango responsible has actually felt it necessary to actually engage in archaeological research at that point, at the point where the trim trail is due to come, which of course is now going to be much closer to the play area than previously intended. So there is less chance perhaps of damage. I think I'm optimistic that eventually we'll get a resolution. I'm reluctant to suggest to ALP that they're going to have to spend money or commit money to research if we can possibly avoid it. So let's play it a bit step by step. It will cause a further delay in this proposal, which is a great pity, but we just have to go through the hoops.
Comment from Stuart
Mark.
Wright: balance between making the site so important that the development won't be allowed, and needing to acknowledge park usage, and therefore our line should be to point out that this is at the extremity of the park, and therefore the benefits would very much outweigh the problems. Also got hands up. Is that Chris Harvey's hands still up from before, or is that a second comment you wish to make, Chris?
That's still there, but
It is extraordinary that the comment you just made, which echoed what Stuart said, is something that was accepted verbally by Dr. James Albon, the person concerned, in a meeting. So, I mean, in principle, they've accepted it and they've accepted the site. It's just crossing the T's and dotting the I's, and they are being fairly clear that we have to do that. So as I say, I'm hopeful we'll get round it eventually, but it's a delay, and unfortunately it's officer time as well. And I'm well aware that we haven't got officer time, which is part of the problem. So
Dave Hodgson.
Yep, Dave, please.
Thank you, Chair. Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't this a reapplication of a previous, well, a changed application? Didn't we put it in and we jumped through all the hoops with English Heritage already? And the reason that we're reapplying is because they wanted us to move it, and we agreed to move it, because I think there was an on-site meeting with someone from English Heritage. I think
there was.
We did meet James from Historic, it's Historic England, I should say.
Yeah,
Heritage,
and it was Dennis met with them, I think, as well. Yeah. And so the previous application presumably has got some of this information.
I don't think it had. The previous application was rejected by James's predecessor on the grounds of the site, which is why we met James on site to look at a relocation. But the Historic England are now objecting.
So we've got a different person who's looking at it in a different light.
I think that may be part of it, but as I said, it is sort of these documents. I think a standard thing that are required for any site. And sorry.
And on the point that Stuart was making about acknowledging the park usage, we could point out that it has been a park for a long time. And originally there was I think a paddling pool and which then turned into a big sand pit that was up on the crest of the hill, and I think other equipment was there as well. So it has traditionally been a place for recreation as well as a site of importance.
I can certainly include that.
I'm not sure if that's what they're looking for, but I mean, I guess we'd probably have another on-site visit and ask them what they want us to say, perhaps.
But I feel we may need some quite technical information on both the health and the historic side of it.
Okay, thank you. That's me. Thank you.
I have a comment from Carla Barreto. Good morning, good evening, everyone. It's not that late yet. Sorry, good evening, everyone. Apologies, unable to log in, internet problems. So apologies from Carla there as well.
Thank you for that from Carla. It's really frustrating. We are reminded of the difficulties we're all facing. Okay, I think we've given Mark enough to do on that, and we will engage with ALP in the way I've suggested, so that they have an opportunity to take it forward should they wish to do so. I'm going to suggest we move on to our final item, unless anyone's thought any last-minute comments on the trim trail. In which case, can we move on to item 503, which is community engagement. Do we, for example, wish to comment on the speed limit proposal? It may already have been done. It may be in the public domain. I'm not sure.
I would assume, Chair, that you'd probably want us to put out some community communications in conduct in joint with the with Norfolk County when this comes into force, or at the moment they're not really. I don't think they're really looking at a public consultation at this stage. But I can sort of get back to the relevant officer and say that we would definitely want to support any publicity on either the consultation process or when it actually is put in place.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether they are proposing consultation or whether they indeed need to.
It wasn't actually mentioned, as far as I remember, in the letter as such. It was just asking our opinion at that stage.
Yeah.
So it wasn't clear whether they're going to, or as you say, don't feel they need to. Also have a comment from Stuart Wright about parish partnerships. I haven't. Are you happy? Is there any other comments on the speed limits engagement, I suppose, before we move on?
I would just add to that if I understand the process correctly, partners are consulted first, i.e. the town council, police, that sort of thing. And then I think there is an element of a public consultation afterwards before they proceed with it. So probably nothing to do at the moment, but it'd be good if we push out on the town council social media when that public consultation goes live. But I couldn't tell you when that is.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, that's what I expected, but as I say, I don't know any more details on that. So shall we say that you know, to as you say, to issue public engagement via social media, etc., when we have something to tell them, basically, as in, you know, this is your opportunity to support this proposal, or, you know, this is happening next week. Thank
you for that. Any other community engagement, colleagues? If not, I think perhaps we just mention the issue that's been referred to, which is the parish partnership. I don't know whether Mark's got a comment. My comment would be that the deadline is fast approaching, and that therefore it might be wise for us to alert full council to the fact that there really ought to be, if we're going to proceed with it, we probably need an item on full council agenda at the end of the month. Can anyone add to that, or does anyone wish to make any further community engagement comment, please?
Mike, if I may, just really the question for Mark was, we proposed the drop curb at Redcastle last planning meeting,
yes.
But subsequent to that, I tabled a request about the small section of Green Lane by Tesco to the garden centre. I just wanted to make sure that that had been put in play with Norfolk County Council to get costed to be put part of the scheme.
Yes, I did send inquiries about them, and I haven't heard back, actually, so I can chase that, but I do feel that we're now looking for next year rather than this year now, realistically. That would be my assessment of what's actually likely and realistic.
In terms of because David hasn't gone back to you in terms of a cost, or is this something?
Yeah, I mean, I've got no sort of no information to go on and to be able to put in a proposal really at this stage. And I've got I've got nothing to work with. I'm unfortunate at this stage, and I think it probably is just too late. I mean, I'm happy to have another go at pushing it, but
well, I think it'd be worthwhile putting it on there with a cost, because we know contractors can do the work similar to they did on the little on the Thet path between Nuns Bridges in there. So just to get the idea of a cost of making that ground up, or a tarmac contractor can give you the cost of that little strip. I think to get it in for this year so that we can put a price in, because in theory I would hope our county councillors would support the idea, and if we are looking to do better access to the riverside paths down there, that would be a key link. And I'm really loath to miss another year, because it's something that, you know, can benefit so many people in the short term. It's not a great deal of money.
No, I mean, in the short term for this year's, I fear that well, perhaps the drop curb is a more realistic option. I mean, given the budgetary situation, which other members may be much more aware of than I am, I don't know whether there's even the resource available to from our side to support our part of a larger project. Again, I don't know how members feel about that.
Any more comment from members about the parish partnership issue? It would perhaps be a pity to miss the boat this year if we got something which is sufficiently far developed to be able to put it in without too much additional effort. So on the drop curb issue, Mark, are we dependent now on a response from county?
Basically, yes. It's just a matter of I'd have to sort of again get back to David Jackman, or if anybody else has got any other channels of communication that might sort of help expedite that. Very welcome to use it. It's, as I said, at the moment, as I said, I haven't got any figures to be able to submit anything. Yeah, I can chase that a bit, but as I said, there is, especially with Ros leaving, there's a limit to how many the different things I can chase at once, effectively. So I'll try once again, but as I say, I'm not sure it's going to be possible.
When did it have to be in by, Mr. Chairman?
Sorry, Brenda, can you start again, please?
When did this have to be in by?
I've got a feeling it's the 3rd or 4th of December. Does that sound right?
It's about then. Again, off the top of my head, I'm not sure, but it is early December, I think.
Yeah, unless we know where the money's coming from, we've got to go to full council, which is November. So
Yes.
whatever happens, it's got to be done very quickly. Whoever's going to take the job on, if you see what I mean, because it'd have to go to full council and then back to Norfolk, because who's got to find the money?
Yep, I think you're right. I suggest that we
Just come in at that point.
I think we should make it an agenda item for Norfolk, and then agenda item for full council, and then we may have to withdraw it at the end or say that the information's been lacking. But we would miss the opportunity if we don't want to simply get the information and then find we haven't got it on an agenda. That would be rather unfortunate, to say the least. I think someone wanted to come in, and I'm sorry I didn't recognise who it was.
Stuart wants to come back on the funding point. Jane did confirm via email post the last planning meeting that in terms of finance, this would come out of the 2021-22 budget. So obviously that would need to be earmarked in whatever budget thing, but it wouldn't need to come out of this year's budget. And we did talk about, a ballpark thing, but I just feel that, even if we get a contractor's price to do the tarmacking or even the drop curb, and putting that in rather than miss the vote.
Yeah, thank you for the first comment, which is helpful. I think that's entirely correct. We really should not, in a sense, have at this stage a financial issue because it's next year's money. On the second issue, I think we have to, colleagues, I'm going to suggest that we leave it in the hands of Mark Webster. We know that he's hard pressed at the moment, and if we don't get information from Norfolk, we may have to let it go. But I would be sorry if we did, and I think we would like to see it proceeded with if we possibly can. At least the drop curb, which, as has been pointed out, is probably the easier of the two to get through at this late stage.
Yeah, it is 4th of December. I can confirm, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, so I think we've given that one a go, and it's an extra item, and I'm very grateful to everybody. Thanks everyone for your wisdom on a difficult evening.
Can I just come back on you there?
Yes, please.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm sorry, but
Brenda.
we're doing these at last minute. So can we either January or February sort out that if Norfolk County Council decide to do this again next year, we have a plan ready. So, talk about it either January or February time, sort out what we want to do and budget for it. And then we are ready rather than leaving it until later stages.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. As soon as we hear from Norfolk that they're going to continue next year, which may not be as early as that, but when it does happen, we do need to crack on with it, quite right. And we already have at least one, assuming we don't manage the Green Lane item, ready as a subject chosen. And if we don't get the drop curb, we've got two. So it's easy for next year because we've already got some thoughts this year. What we haven't got is concrete information and a hard case to be made. Okay. I'll wind up again by saying thank you very much for your wise words, colleagues, and the meeting is now closed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Joe, are you still on?
And it's good night from me.
Yeah, good night.
Thanks
Good.
very much.
Okay,
indeed.
good.